Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's first class for PM. Today is basically the orientation class for PM, which is F5, for the session March 2021. Welcome, everyone, to ACCA Flipped Learning. This is your instructor, Rabia Sheikh. So I will just start with a little introduction about myself. I am a professional ACCA teacher. I was ex-Tutor Scan School of Accountancy. And my specialty is basically cost and management related. Okay, MA, MA1, MA2, MA, and PM. I have produced excellent result in the past. I've got 3 years corporate experience and 8 years plus teaching experience. And during Corona pandemic, we started this flipped learning setup, and which is basically based upon the flipped learning model, which is basically blending learning, a mix of recorded and live sessions we offer as a part of our partnership to PARS program. And all faculty members we have are from the ALP tuition providers, excellent faculty members. Okay. Then have a look at the exam format. So like all other applied skills exam, it's a 3-hour CB computer-based exam. So it comprises of 3 sections. There are 3 sections in PM exam: Section A, Section B, and Section C. So Section C comprises of objective test questions. We will look at what kind of objective test questions in our later slides. Okay, so 15 objective test questions, 2 marks each, and objective test questions can come from the entire syllabus. It covers the broad coverage of the syllabus, examiner tested from all various areas. There's a big, huge areas in the PM exam. We're also going to look at each individual areas. So it can come, the question can come from the entire area. So it's 15 objective test questions, 2 marks each. So that makes 30 marks per section A. And then section B, there are 3 multitask questions. You're familiar with multitask questions if you have given F1 and F2 and F3 exam. There are also in the section B, there are multitask questions. So just like that, there are multiple tasks connected to one scenario. That's also a very tricky part. So you have a tricky section, tricky questions to handle, because with the common scenario, there are multiple tasks. So you need to read the question very carefully. So though that comprises of 3 multitask questions, 10 marks each, right? And in each of that 10 marks, it's kind of 5 multitask, 2 marks each. So that makes 10. Yeah, and you have 3 multitask questions. So overall, it is 30 marks for section B as well. 30 marks for section A is 30 marks for section B. So as you can see that 60% of the paper is basically based upon that is basically the objective test part. So objective test part basically comprises of the 60% of your exam, and both these sections are very important. One section that you might not have handled before in your prior exam, that is the section B, which is basically, that starts from the applied skills, which is basically, you will be having 2 constructive response questions. So what is a constructive response question? Okay, there will be a scenario. It will be scenario based. It could be a knowledge based question, or it could be an application based question connected to that very scenario. Okay, and here, why we call it a constructive response questions, because here you're not given any option. Just like in objective test questions, you're given options and you have to select the right answers and all that. Here you could have a numerical requirement, or you could have a discursive requirement. And in numerical requirement, there will be a spreadsheet. You guys are familiar with spreadsheet, okay? That is a kind of, that is just like an Excel sheet, but with less functionality. Your exam spreadsheet is not the real Excel sheet with all those functionalities enabled in it, but there are lesser functionalities. So for numerical part, you need to start from the scratch. Reading the scenario, carefully reading the scenario, you need to start from the scratch and you need to solve all the numerical part. And for the discursive part, you have word processing sheet, okay? You have word processing sheet, which is just like a Word document, right? And whatever you need to write in paragraphs, short, nice paragraphs, you need to write your discursive numerical answers. So this is one challenging part, because you guys haven't done this for before. So in our live classes, as well as I've got my pre-recorded lectures in my classroom, as well as my practice question videos, in which I have actually told you guys how to draft right from the scratch, how to draft and how to perform all these section C type of questions. So section C can also come from the entire area, okay, just like section A and section B can come from the entire area, okay. So section C also can come, question on section C can come from the entire area. We're going to look at the syllabus areas as well. It can come from the entire area, excluding one syllabus area, which is the advanced costing technique. So an advanced costing technique would only be assessed in section A and section B. However, there wouldn't be any constructive response question on advanced costing technique. So 2 constructive response questions, 20 marks each, so that makes 40 marks. And together 30 marks for section A, 30 marks for section B, and 40 marks. So 60 marks for section A and B and 40 marks. Together it's 100 marks exam. You have 3 hours for that, and they're 50% are the passing percentage, just like all the ACCA papers. So now, what are the syllabus areas in detail? I'll be looking at the syllabus areas. So one syllabus area is information system. You could have question in the entire section. Any question could come in section A, section B, and section C. However, as I told you, there's another section which is based upon the theories and the concepts and the costing techniques, just like you're familiar with marginal and absorption costing. So this area would only be tested, as I told you, in section A and section B of your paper. And in section C, there couldn't be any constructive response question from this area. No CRQ from this area, only section A and section B. Planning and budgeting, all sections, that's another area, okay? Planning, budgeting, okay? That's a planning and budgeting area. Then there is a control and variance area. All sections, it can come in all section, it could come in section A, section B, or section C. Then there's another area known as decision making, and then performance evaluation. So question can come from all the areas. Now have a look at some of the past paper analysis that I've done, okay, though the actual may be different, but on an average and as per the latest trend, from each of these sections, what is basically the percentage of the theory and the numerical that could be asked. Usually in the budgeting area, it is 60 to 65% it's theory based. Yeah, but it's not like that this trend will move on. Maybe the examiner can change the trend, because before the latest is just like that. That's more theory based. It's a more discussion related question rather than numerical question. But as you look at the past papers, there are questions in the past paper, just like a Noble Go, which is 80% of the calculation based and 20% it's discursive. And there's another question which is Newton's Co. Okay, so the trend can vary. It's not a pet thing that you need to stick to that. But yes, you need to make your theory and discursive question very good just when it comes to budgeting and the planning area. Then the other area, control and variance, it's like 50% it's calculation based and 50% it's discussion based, which is going to be a very discursive requirement. In decision making, it's going to be, but it can vary. The percentage can vary. Okay, but as per my analysis, it's like that. As per the latest past paper trends, it tells you like that. The 50%, because in variances, what we first calculate the variance. Now, what is the deviation from the budget? And then you link the variance with that of the performance of the manager, that how he has actually performed. How for the sales variances you have calculated, you may be discussing in the other parts that how that sales manager has performed. Yeah, production manager, you have calculated some variances, labor variances, material variances, then you'll be doing some discussion that how that production manager has actually performed during that period. So it's 50% it's calculation based and 50% is discussion. In decision making, it's more calculation than theory, and the percentage is like this. In performance evaluation, it is basically the heart of PM paper, okay, because the paper name is performance management. You should know, you should develop the skills being a management accountant, you should develop all these skills. Okay, that's your role. Okay, being a management accountant, you should know that how you are going to plan things. Okay, first of all, how you're going to set the budgets, and then you compare your performance against that set benchmark, which is basically control the variance. And meanwhile, you'll be taking some decisions, like you'll be taking decisions that whether to continue with one product, whether to continue with or discontinue that product because it's not profitable, or whether you want to invest in project one or project two, or any decisions you may be making. Just like maybe you want a certain department, you want to shut it down, maybe operations you want to shut down for a short while, or for example, if you have any contract and you want to evaluate whether I should undertake that contract or not, based upon the benefits you're going to have, the incremental revenues, and after taking around the incremental costs. So based upon relevant costing, you'll be taking some decisions at the same time. So being a management accountant, you need to possess all those skills. Okay, just imagine that you're working in a company, you're doing all the planning, control, you're taking the decisions, and in the end, you should be able to comment. You should be able to comment and assess your performance, that how far you have achieved your objectives, or where you are lacking, or what were the problems of a good perform. You should what were the problems? What were the reasons of a bad performance? Like an evaluator, like an assessor, you should be able to comment, and you should be able to discuss about your performance, that how well your performance has been. So this is the heart of performance management. So as I told you, it's more theoretical because it's basically a discussion based question. So it's more of a discussion. Definitely the performance discussion is basically based upon the numbers you have calculated, basically based upon the calculations, like certain ratio analysis, like profitability ratios, like liquidity ratios. So definitely it'll be based upon some calculations, but calculation doesn't carry much marks. It's actually the theory which examiner assess you on. So that was about the syllabus area. Now I would tell you what are different objective test questions. Okay, those are multiple choice questions, multiple response questions, fill in the blanks, drag and drop down list, hotspot and hot area. What are these? Now we'll look at here. Multiple choice questions are just like it's a typical multiple choice question right in front of you. Here, out of the 4 options, you need to select one out of 4. So that's, you need to select one right answer out of the 4, and there are multiple choices given. That is a typical type of a multiple choice questions. Here, for example, using activity-based costing, what is the budgeted overhead cost per unit for product D? For this product, using a technique that is the technique you guys have already done in your F2 level, which is activity-based costing, which is an alternative method of overhead absorption, just like absorption costing. So that's about a multiple choice question. And then multiple response questions. So what are multiple response questions? Multiple response questions, more than one answer you need to select out of the options available. And how many options you need to select? Definitely you need to read the question very carefully. For example, you need to pick 2 out of 4. 2 answers are right. In multiple, why is it different from multiple choice question? There, out of 4, we need to pick 1. So their multiple responses can be correct. So you need to know, you need to read the question very carefully, that how many questions you need to select, because system allows you to select as many as options you want. System won't give you any warnings if you're selecting 4. However, in the question it was 2. So you need to be very careful because there are no warnings by the systems. And as well, for example, if you're selecting only 1 and you were supposed to select 2, and you are selecting only one option. Okay, so item review screen and navigator will show question as complete. Even then you have only selected one option. So you need to be very careful that you make sure that after reading carefully, you select the right answer. right? And you need to go through this all the scenarios. It's not just that you have read two questions and you think those are right. You need to go through the other options as well, and you need to know why the other options are wrong. Yeah, why the other options doesn't relate to the scenario above. So you just don't need to know the right answer, you also need to know why the other options are wrong. Okay, so fill in the blank question, number entry questions, not just number, it could be text as well. So it could be number that you're entering, it could be text. Yeah. So you need to be very careful what is allowed there and what is not allowed. One thing, unit of measurement, that what you need to calculate, for example, what is the target cost for each unit of product X? Yeah. So what is the target cost? So it's a cost, and you can see the unit of measurement. It will sit outside the box. At times you need to calculate units. Yeah, at times you need to calculate cost. So you need to know what is the unit of measurement there. Okay, and what is allowed. For example, the answer is 1002.52. Okay, so you will, for decimal, you will use that full stop, that dot, yeah, as a decimal. And for example, the answer is 10,000, right? Answer is 10,000 and you're using that comma. No commas or other characters are allowed other than the number and the text, and decimal to be used for full stop to be used as a decimal. And if a number is negative, just put one minus symbol before that word. For example, if the answer was negative like this, just put one minus sign before. And unit of measurement, what is, whether it's units, yeah, whatever it is, whether it's a cost, you need to calculate. And most importantly, you need to know the rounding rules. For example, in this question, you need to answer up to 2 decimal place. At times you need to have to answer to the nearest cent, to the nearest thousand. So you need to know, otherwise you will lose. Even if the answer is correct, you haven't taken the number up to 2 decimal place, you will lose your marks, right? You will lose your precious 2 marks. So fill in the blanks are the trickiest one in the objective test part. And also, as you can see, there are 60 out of 100 marks available in the PM exam. So you can't afford to make all those mistakes. So you need to be very careful about. Then there are questions in drag and drop. Whatever exams you're taking for all the applied skill, this is what the scenario, these are the objective test questions which are examined in any of the paper, whether one of you are taking FM or any other paper. So same is applied everywhere. Drag and drop questions is basically where you need to drag, as you can see, that match each of the following statement to the correct budgeting process. Yeah, here are the budgeting processes given, and here are the response area. So, and here are the right statements. Okay, so I actually picked one statement. As you can see that I've actually picked it. So it's like you drag an answer. Here are the answers. So you right answer out of all rights, you drag the right answer, you drop it to the right response area. That's about the drag and drop question. For example, recognizes different cost behavior patterns. I'm going to match it and drag. This is the budgeting technique, and if it relates to, for example, recognizing different cost behavior patterns, it is basically flexible budgeting. Yeah, flex budget, though it's not purely visible. Focuses on controlling the causes of the cost. So I am going to drop focuses employees on avoiding wasteful expenditure. So I'm going to drop the right at the right response area. So that's a drag and drop question. However, you need to know that it could involve matching more than one answer to a response area. Yeah, more than one answer to certain response area. It's just not that maybe there'll be another column here and more answers need to be matched to one response area. And some may have more answer choices than response area. For example, there are 4 response area and 4 statements are there. You need to pick 4 statement and you need to put at their respective places. But at times there are more choices, like there are 10 choices and you need to put it at the 4 response areas. So you need to know that not all available choices may be used, so you need to pick the right answer. So that's another tricky question, which is drag and drop. Now the drop-down list, it's kind of an MCQ in which you have to select one right option from the drop-down menu. Yeah. See, you're going to select this after reading the question and reading requirement very carefully. Now then you're going to select, and there'll be 4 answers. You need to pick one answer out of that. And at times there are 2 drop down menus. For example, here one menu, here it was 4 lists of, for example, it's a variance question. It is 5,000, 3,000, 2,000, 8,000, right? And then in the other drop down menu, it says whether it's adverse or whether it's favorable, right? Or 0 variance. So here I select 5,000, and for example, if 5,000 favorable, on the other drop down menu, I select 5,000, I select favorable, right? So at times there are multiple drop down menus as well, and you need to select right answer from each one of these. Then another question known as hotspot question. So what it is, 1 point on an image needs to be the right answer. For example, and when you would, this is the image, this is the question, this is the requirement, and this is the image. And as you're going to move your cursor on the image, that X is going to display as an X, okay? Cursor is hovered on the image as an X, and X needs to be the right answer. So whichever line, for example, is correct, you need to put that X on that line. Whether you put it here or here, as far as it's the same line, okay, it will be considered to be a right answer. But if you put, this is the right answer, you're putting the cursor over here, okay, then it will be a wrong. If you're putting cursor over here, then it will be wrong. Or if you're putting cursor somewhere which is touching both the branches, like you're putting cursor here, then it will be considered to be a wrong answer as well. So as far as it touching the line, answer is correct only. Now, hot area, what is a hot area? Just like you, it's like a hotspot question, but instead of a point, you select a area which is correct, right? For example, only one of the following statements regarding faithful representation is true. Identify that statement by clicking on the relevant box in the table below. Okay, so whichever statement is right, for example, if only one is true, and mark all others as false. So if this is true, you put your cursor over here. You select that area which is right. So it's an area, it's not a point. Okay, it's an area that you need to select, and it will be a right answer. And in the requirement, 2 areas you need to be selected. How many areas need to be selected? It will be mentioned in the requirement. So just like multiple response questions, again in the navigator and item review screen, it would, whether you haven't selected all the required areas, even then it will consider it to be complete. So you need to be very careful while you're doing such questions as well. Have a look at the global pass rate for this hardest of all the applied skills paper. As you can see, the pass rates, just like if 1,000 are appearing in any session, not 500 are not passing. Means 50% is not the pass rate, right? So it's hard to pass. Definitely it's hard to pass. It covers a lot of area. It requires a lot of computational, a lot of discursive skills. It requires a lot of conceptual understanding, a lot of practice. For example, if you failed in F2 or in your earlier management accounting papers like MA1, MA2, definitely it will be hard for you if you failed or either passed on 50 or at a very low percentage, right? If you passed at 80s and 90s, then it's fine. Okay, if you study by following a proper plan, it won't be that hard. But if you were already struggling with that paper earlier, and if your foundation was weak, definitely it's going to give you a very hard time. So see the maximum as compared to the last session, the maximum it went up to 42, right? And in September 20, March it was 35%, September 2020 it was 39%, right? However, if you can see the pass rates for other applied skills paper, like it's 49% in tax, 50% in FR, it's 41% in AA, and it fits 52% in FM. So it is considered to be the hardest of all the applied skills with the lowest pass rates, right? So you need to study very hard. You need a proper trainer. You need to practice according to a certain study plan. I'm going to share all the study plans, all the assignment plans, test and quizzes. I'm going to share everything with you today. So before moving on to, I'm going to discuss in the end. Okay, I'll do it in the end. I will go through each of the topic areas, and like in one section, it's advanced costing technique. What are the topics that we will cover in each one of the section, and what you have already covered, and what will be new to you that in the PM at the PM level. Just like in budgeting as well, in control, in decision making, in performance and information systems. So I'm going to discuss all those things, but let's quickly move on to the reasons of the failure and what are the exam tips and techniques for that, right? So reasons, important things to discuss is the like examination techniques I'm going to discuss. There's a CB practice platform, okay, in which you're supposed to do the practice, right? For example, if you have your kids in the hard copy, if you read from the kids, but reading from this on-screen reading is quite different, right? Reading from the screen and then constructing your response is entirely different thing, rather than you're reading from the book, hard book, and then you're writing on a piece of paper. So that's not what is required from you in your PM exam, because it's a very time pressurizing paper. So right from the start, you need to practice on the system. You need to practice on Excel. You need to if you're not good at the typing speed, it's time to start now. You need to work on your typing speed while you're doing the discursive question in the word processing sheet. Okay, if you're not good with the calculations, if you don't know the basics of the Excel, start working now, because in section C you will be doing all the calculations in Excel, right? So it's CBE practice platform. It's very important. You need to do the entire practice on that. You need to assign tests. Besides what I'm going to provide you, there are 5 assignment plans. Do those plans and then get the feedback on that. Other than that, you go to the CB practice platform. Past paper are over there, and you can assign for one day. For example, you're assigning one test. So it's very important that you go through. You start the practice. You start the practice under exam conditions. Under exam conditions. What I have seen students learning from the reading answer from the book and reading question from the book, and then going at the back and reading the answer, reading the question, reading the answer, reading the question. That's not you're required to do. You need to time yourself. You need to time yourself. You need to do the practice right from the start under exam conditions. Okay, and then there are examiner report questions. That's basically the past paper analysis from the examiner that actually tells you the weaknesses or the problems faced during the exam, that which he'll pick certain questions from all the sections, and he'll going to tell you how many students struggled, which student why one was the right answer, why the other one was wrong. So this analysis from the examiner report question, it's very good. You need to know the action verb for discursive. Since you haven't ever produced or drafted your answer like a discussion or a discursive style answer, so you may not know what do the examiner mean by explain activity based costing. Yeah, so you need to know what is discuss. Yeah, what are these action verbs. So I have done the entire video on that. There are multiple articles written by the examiner on this action verb available in the ACCA Global website. Do study the action verb. What does each action verb mean? What do I mean by assess? What do I mean by evaluate? Just like, for example, if the question asks you to explain the process of zero-based budgeting and you're just stating the purpose in a bullet points. Okay, when I'm teaching you, I'm actually explaining you with more examples so that the idea gets clear to you. And if examiner is asking you to explain some certain thing and you're just stating points, it's not a state requirement. It's not an outline requirement which can be fairly brief. It needs to require explanation. The action verb is explain, right? If it would have been state on outline, I would have stated points like this. But if it's an explanation, you need to write in short paragraphs, no bullet points. It won't give you any marks, short paragraphs. And you need to know how to draft paragraphs, okay? If I start writing, and if I want practice right from the start, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write, keep on writing. Oh my God, it's going to be very daunting for you to read it. So how can you expect the examiner? So you need to split whatever you're writing. You be very clear, whatever are your points, be very clear what you are writing. For example, one idea, one point in paragraph number 1. Usually it's the introductory paragraph, which is paragraph number 1. And then after that, 2 statements for the introduction. And then you start writing what you are supposed to write, what you're supposed to discuss, or what you're So what is your assessment, or what is your evaluation, or whatever you're writing, outlining, stating, you need to write in the paragraph form. You need to learn from the scratch. So one clear idea, one paragraph, another paragraph, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. And how much you need to write, I am going to share my examination techniques with you. Then how much to write? Usually student overwrite and at times they underwrite, which is not a right. So, and another important thing is you need to self-evaluate yourself. Just don't be dependent upon, yeah, my feedback is very important, but just don't be dependent upon me. Try to self-evaluate your question as per examiner marking scheme. Whenever you're doing a practice kit, definitely it will be a past paper question. And if you go look at the past paper question, there is a marking scheme that for each part, how many marks is evaluated. For example, for requirement 1, it was 2 marks. For this point, there were 3 marks. For this point, there were 4 marks. So try to self-evaluate your question as per the examiner marking scheme. And then after reading the standard answer, usually the standard answer is very detailed. So examiner marking scheme actually pinpoints what was supposed to be written that could have earned marks. So start. If you'll be done with one topic. For example, you'll start with costing techniques first. Okay, as you're doing the practice, need to do in the CB practice platform. Just get accustomed to the on-screen reading and writing, and using Excel, and time yourself as per the exam conditions. If it's a 20-mark question you're doing, then you have 30 minutes for that. 36 minutes for that. And if I deduct 6-minute reading and planning time, definitely you'll be reading and going through the scenario. So what you're left for discussion and calculation, you're only left with 30 minutes for that. So when you're practicing, maybe at first you'll take 40 minutes, maybe you'll take an hour, but definitely a learning curve will achieve, and you need to achieve that before going to the exam. Otherwise, you will end up leaving important questions, important parts. There'll be unattempted paper, and definitely you'll be losing marks. Because of unattempted paper and not being able to finish the paper in time is a major reason of failure in PM exam, because they don't really know what to write, how much to write. Okay, so you need to write from the start. You need to self-evaluate yourself and then mark your answer script as per the examiner marking scheme, and after reading the standard answer. And this read the mind of the marker. You need to read the mind of the marker, that what is examiner looking for, what is looking for in your answer. So you need to read the mind of the marker. So you after going through examiner report questions and read the mind of the marker analysis by the examiner, and also by looking at the examiner's marking scheme, it's actually giving you a hint what is examiner looking for in an answer which is a pass, in a paper which deserve a pass, and why people are failing. Okay, reasons of failure: not following a comprehensive study plan. Okay, not going to an institute that actually provides you the study plan, that actually instruct you from right from the start. So I'll provide you the comprehensive study plan. Okay, usually for a very good person who has actually passed F2 exam or MA2 exam with flying colors, yeah, he can do 2 to 3 hours. Even then he would require a 2 to 3 hours dedicated study, and in the last month it could be extended to 6 to 8 hours, yeah, with extensive practice and conceptual understanding. But if you have actually, you don't have that, your basics are not very good, so definitely you right from the start, you need daily, you need, and at the end before the exam as well, you need a lot of time for this paper and a lot of practice. And because here, if your foundation is weak, your concepts are weak. So if the time is definitely very less, it's you only usually have 2.5 months. So if you're going to work on the concepts, you will lack in practice, you will lack somewhere. So you need to extend the time. It's not that I've said 2 to 3 hours it will work for you. No, it won't work for you. Time management problem due to lack of practice under time conditions. As I've already told you, you need to practice under time conditions, especially for the section C discursive questions. So if it's a 36, if it's a 20-mark question, so and means you have 36 minutes for that. Set a challenging time per mark. It's a time per mark rule. Always spend 1.5 minute per mark rule. Okay. For example, if there are multiple requirements, 1, 2, 3, requirement 1 carries 2 marks, requirement 2 carries 5 marks, 8 marks, if it's something like that. So you need to allocate the time as per this 1.5 minute per 1 mark rule. So it's going to be, I open up my calculator and exactly tell you how much time you'll be having for all these parts I've mentioned. 2 into 1.5. So you have 3 minutes for this. You have 3 minutes for this, right? 3 minutes for this. 5 minutes, 5 marks mean how much time do you have? As per 1.5 minute per mark rule. So 5 marks means you have 7.5 minutes for this. And you have, for example, and for example, 8, if it's 8 into 1.5, you exactly have 12 minutes to solve this. 12 minutes. So how are you going to do the practice right from the start under exam condition? What do I mean by exam condition? So you are going to allocate the time not to the question. Okay. This is the time for the entire question, and out of this 6 minutes is reading and planning time. Yeah. So you don't need to allocate the time to the question. Rather, you're going to allocate the time to the each individual part and excluding 6 minutes reading and planning time. If I use this rule of 1.5 minute, definitely it will exclude, usually it is 1.8 minute. So I've already excluded 6 minutes for reading and planning time because it's a scenario where you will have multiple requirements to answer. So definitely you need to go through the scenario. Okay. So you need to highlight things. You need to identify things from the scenario. You need to jot down some points while you are reading and planning. So that is very important for every part. So beside that, you need to allocate time to each part, and 30 minutes you have for calculation and discussion. So if that time is over, like I'm doing this part, it was of 2 marks, okay, and 3 minutes are over, time is over, move on, stop writing, move on to the next question. Okay, if it was a 2-mark question, means I had 3 minutes for that, means ideally I should be writing like 2 short paragraphs, yeah, or two short statements for that much. You need to know how much you need to write, right? But if I'm going to write if I know a lot, I know you know a lot, if I'll start writing 5 paragraphs for that. That is useless. It will only gain 2 marks. But here you are doing, you're actually taking time from the other marks that can award you more marks. So how to tackle the time management, how to get the time management skill? You need to start working or start practicing right from the start. Allocate time to each part, and if the time is over, move on to the next question. Move on to the next question. Okay. Over calculating and underwriting. So a student often asks me what should be the length of the answer. So length of the answer, definitely how much you need to write, I've already explained you. Length of the answer depends upon the marks available. Most importantly, like how much marks you have, like if it's a 15 marks requirement, and also as per the marks available, 1, and as per the action verb used. For example, if it's explain, needs more explanation. If it's discuss, action verb is discuss, it needs more explanation for that. It needs more explanation. So if it's a 15-mark requirement, like explain, discuss, and describe. Describe is also, you need to explain more. Like I'm describing a person, so I would just won't highlight the main points. I would explain. It won't. It actually needs a narrative for that. So I need to, while it describes an action verb, I describe the procedure, describe a process of, for example, target costing. So I need to explain. Yeah, I need to explain with examples probably, so that the main idea is clear. So depending upon the marks available and also the time available and the action verb used, you need to know how much you need to write. Like for example, 15 marks, you have 22 minutes for that. So at least write 6 to 7 points in short paragraphs. At least write that much of the answer. But within the time frame, the time is over, please move on to the next question. Please move on to the next question, because why I'm saying that? An average paper, but a complete paper. Yeah. Otherwise, you won't be able to attempt the 100% of the paper, and there'll be unattempted question. For example, like a student was telling me, I haven't attempted 15-mark question, and I was, oh my god. When student tell me that they have unattempted question, first of all, I think I don't know if they're going to pass or not. So doing an average paper, but a complete one is a pass, rather than a well-written, like you wrote one question very good and the other one you are just you were short of time and they were it was unattempted. So rather than a well written but an incomplete paper, attempting 100% of the paper will actually help you to get 50. So when you attempt 100, then there are more chances that you will get 50 out of it. So getting 50 is easy only when you do a complete but an average paper. But if you're good and you're good with the time allocation and everything, and you're not short of time, even a good person there, it is a time pressurizing. So that's why I'm focusing a lot on that. Okay, not another fair, reason for failure is not understanding the requirement properly. Because you guys are not breaking the requirements into action, verb, and the object. Like what is action, verb, and object? For example, discuss the performance, or explain the advantages, disadvantages. For example, explain the performance in this period, or explain the advantages or disadvantages of, for example, activity-based costing. Okay, so you need to know what is the action verb and what is the object. Action verb, what you need to perform, that is discuss and explain. And at times in one requirement there may be multiple action verbs, so you need to address all the action verbs, all the parts of the requirements, right, in order to get the entire marks, because the marks will be split, I'm going to tell you. So, and what is the object? Object is what you need to discuss, center of your action. Here, object is performance. I need to discuss the performance. Discuss the implications. Implication is the object. Here, discuss the advantage and disadvantage is the object. So you need to know so you need to split your requirement into the action verb and the object, and you need to address all parts of the requirement. There are multiple requirements having two parts. For example, for one, the action verb was identified, and the other one, the action verb was explained, and there were 4 marks. Yeah, and there were 4 marks, means you had 6 minutes for that, right? So what 2 to 3 short paragraphs each part will gain 2 marks. 2 marks for identification, and for example 2 marks for the explanation action verb. So you need to allocate time according for when you're writing first part, like identifying something. Okay, for example 2 to 3 short paragraphs for that. Okay, 2 it is fine, but yeah, 2 to 3 short paragraphs. If it's 2 to 3 short lines, statements, okay, whatever you call it. So or if it's end, the time for each would be 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes for identification and 3 minutes for explanation. But if I'm not going to read the question very carefully and I haven't identified all the parts, all the requirements in one part, okay, and definitely the marks weightage would be according to that. So for example, if my entire focus was on identification, so maybe even if it's a well written answer, examiner would only give me 2 marks while I'm checking papers. And that's why I'm telling you, whenever you're doing a practice, just go through the examiner marking scheme. Here for identification, he must have written the 2 marks for that. And if a person hasn't explained, hasn't attempted the other part of the requirement, definitely I cannot. When I'm checking papers, I see that student don't address the entire requirement. So I cannot give you any marks for that. And out of 4, you would only be getting 2 marks. So for example, you only get 1 out of 4. See, that makes the difference, 1 out of 4. Examiner want to give you marks, but you need to provide the script that he thinks is worth giving the marks, right? So you need to know all those things, and right from the scratch, under exam conditions, allocating time to the parts, reading the action verb, all the requirements, allocating time, everything, you need to solve the question right there. Okay, So failure to read and understand the marking scheme, as I've told you that, and failure to self-evaluate as per the examiner marking scheme and standard examiner is another reason for the failure. So practice under kind conditions, self-mark against the examiner marking scheme and after reading the standard answers. Yeah, there are two kind of requirements, knowledge-based requirements and application-based requirements. Application-based requirement, for example, examiner is asking you certain thing, explain the problems TICO is facing. For example, TICO is the name of the company, name of the question. So definitely it's an application-based requirements. You can't give general statements for that. You are not linking your answer to the scenario, okay? So definitely examiner can give you marks. So whenever, for example, for a performance evaluation question, when you need to discuss the performance, okay, they'll be in the scenario. In the scenario is very important. Reading scenario and pinpointing the info and highlighting information, important information from the scenario is very key, very critical, very important, because that's on the basis of what you're going to link, you'll answer logically as per the requirements for all the parts. So for example, facts and figures given in the scenario like price information, relative percentages, any changes happening like market conditions or economic conditions, or any industry related information or any competitors information it's really going to be important. Or any, for example, targets. While evaluating, you need to know the targets or industry averages. So any percentages, any information given in the scenario while you're evaluating your performance, it's very important. And then linking your answers back to the scenario, that why profitability was down. Why profitability was down? Because cost was up. Yeah. Why customer services cost was up? Because there were a lot of customer complaints. So you need to link everything back with the scenario. Whatever comment you're making, you need to link it back. Okay. So answer need to be according to the facts given in the scenario. So every line has a meaning in it. Whatever is there in the scenario, it's not there. It's not useless. It's, you're going to use that, and you need to write your answer, especially for the application based requirement. If it's a knowledge based requirement, for example, write the steps of activity based costing. It's a knowledge based requirement. It's a knowledge based question, reading from the book or from the notes, whatever points you're coming up with, and in the short paragraphs you're you're writing that. So, but here you don't need any application. For knowledge base, you don't need any application. But if it's an application based scenario, and you're not linking your answer to the scenario and specifically using the word TICO company and using things from the scenario, definitely won't give you pass, won't give you marks. Covering the entire syllabus, objective test questions comprises of 60% of the paper. And section B also comes from multiple topics. Okay. In one section C, for example, there are five tasks in it, right? There are five tasks. So maybe one task could come from one topic, the other task could come from the other topic. For example, limiting factor, one part could come from single limiting factor, the other part could come from multiple limiting factor, yeah, or the other part could be linked to budgeting or any other area, yeah, not just decision making. It could be linked to any other area. For example, any MCQ is coming, so you can't miss any part, you can miss any topic, any part. Okay, can't miss any topic. So OTQs are also interlinked, and application of concepts and theories is very important. Okay, another tip for section B, which is objective case style questions. Comprehensive understanding of theories and concepts in numerical as well as discursive part is required in the OTQ. As I told you, multiple tasks are coming from the common scenario. It could refer to different period. For example, in one, you need to calculate production budget for one period. The other, in the other part, you need to calculate what was the limiting factor in period 3, or in other part you're calculating what was the limiting factor in period 4. So it could refer to from the common scenario. So reading the information, reading scenario carefully and pinpointing the key information, as I told you, every line has the meaning in it, and then you are attempting the answers for that. So that's very critical. Objective test part, as I told you, comprises of 60%, 60% of your entire marks. So you need to be prepared for that. So these are the topics tested in September, And these are the topics tested in our latest session, December 2020. Question was on transfer pricing, rolling budget, ABC budgeting, limiting factor, single limiting factor, multiple limiting factor, financial, non-financial performance, divisional performance. Section B, it was based on life cycle costing, activity-based costing. That's what the students have told me that that's what has been examined in December session, mix and yield variance, make and buy. So as you can see, examiner draft a paper, and also at multiple times in multiple locations, there are multiple papers. It's not one paper that, for two persons, it could be a different paper. And it would be an entire comprehensive paper that actually convince an examiner that that person deserve a pass, deserve 50 marks and deserve a pass. Okay, so moving on to all these individual areas. Before that, I just want to share a study planner with you, because a lot of you guys were asking me about the planners, especially Shabuna and Komal Jain. Okay. Okay, that's the study planner for March 2021. As you can see, starting from December, that's the week 4. Okay, you're going to cover the advanced costing technique, and after a certain area is done, for example, next class will be, next live class will be on 31st, right? So after covering one area, I will have a live session. Okay, every week I'll be having a live session, and also an assignment would be due. As you can see, the assignment plan, as you can see here, that's my assignment plan. After at the end of each section, for example, one section is advanced costing technique, the assignment is due on 1st January. And why is it important? Get your assignments submit your assignments and get the feedback on your assignments. Why? Because students, when they attempt mock, and I see that they should have known that right from the beginning, and I'm telling them right at the time of the mock. Okay, so send your answers. I've got 5 assignments in the overall session relating to each part, like advanced costing technique, budgeting, variances, so relating to each part. So please submit your assignments, and these are the deadlines for the assignments at the end of every session. So please get it marked from me, get the feedback before the exam, and try so that you improve yourself. Getting feedback somewhere here when it will be mock sessions won't help you. Get your feedbacks on the assignments so that you don't make the mistakes when I'm checking your mock. Yeah, I want to see improvements, because when I check mock, there are only 4 or 5 days or a week left in the exam. You can't improve, so you need to improve right from the start. So December, then January, 2 weeks for budgeting and variance, and after that there'll be revision sessions every Thursday, 3 p.m., right? Every Thursday 3 p.m. So after budgeting and variance, there'll be revision, 1 week revision, and in the same week, at the end of day 7, I will conduct mid mock one, and it will come from which area? Advanced costing technique, budgeting, and variance, like January week 4. So see all those, and then you're going to do the decision making and then performance. So at the end of that, I will take the mock for the next half of the syllabus, like decision making, performance, and information system. So again, you will do the revision, and at the end of day 7, I will be taking your mock. So it's kind of at the end of every session. So I split it, actually, as you can see that I've actually split it into 2. I've actually split it the entire syllabus and the mocks into 2. For here, you will you have one mock for this part of the syllabus, okay, and another mock for this part of the syllabus, and after that there'll be another mock after that. As you can see, that in February week 4, sorry, in March, like almost towards the end of February, as you can see in the last days, yeah, the course completion date would be 22nd. 19th is the last deadline for the last assignment, okay, and then there'll be mocks and revisions. So as you can see here, after in the last, there'll be another mock, and then which is going to be a revision mock, and then after that there'll be one final mock, and I'll be giving personalized feedback on your mocks, okay, and then there'll be a feedback session. So that's how I'm going to go. That's my plan. Okay. Now, moving on to each individual areas. I also want to discuss the individual areas, and then the session would end. So what are the areas? Okay, costing techniques. Number one area in the costing techniques is basically you will start from marginal and absorption costing. It's absorption versus marginal, and then ABC versus absorption costing. So what is the difference between basically the absorption costing and marginal costing? It's true school of thought. Why is it used? It is used for inventory valuation, and for profit reporting purposes, there are two techniques which is being used, and the third difference is one of them is being used for decision making. Okay, so the difference between absorption and marginal costing is you need to understand the concept of a product cost and a period cost. Okay, so absorption costing consider the product cost to be the total production cost, which is prime cost plus variable production overhead as well as the fixed production overhead. However, marginal costing school of thought says that the product cost is the one which is being incurred on one extra unit. For example, if I'm going to, I produce pencils, and if I'm going to produce one more pencil, which cost will increase? Definitely, the variable production cost would only increase, the rental cost won't increase. So the way they treat their product and period cost and the way they value their inventory, and definitely because the way different way they'll be calculating their cost of goods sold, there'll be difference in their profit reporting as well. Okay, so marginal costing values inventory and it considered the product cost to be the marginal production cost or the variable production cost, which would be prime cost plus variable production overhead only. Yeah, so product cost, you know that it is charged up to the unit sold. For example, if I produce 1,000 units but I only sold 500 units, the cost for 500 units would be expensed out. Only cost for 500 units would be expensed out, right? Because the revenue, yeah, matching concept, because we have got revenue only for 500 units, so definitely we won't deduct the cost for the entire production cost of 1,000 units. We will only deduct cost for 500 units only. That's how we will be able to calculate the gross profit. But for marginal costing, it considered the fixed cost as a period cost. And the difference between a product and a period cost is product cost is charged up to the unit sold. However, period cost is charged in entirety for the period it belongs to, for which you're making the profit statements. So if fixed overhead here is a period cost, so when I produce more and I sell less and my closing inventory is more than my opening inventory, then in that case absorption profit report a higher profit than marginal costing. Why? Because not fixed cost for 1,000 units would have been charged in this period, only fixed cost for 500 units sold would be charged in this period. But in marginal costing, since fixed overhead cost is a period cost, because marginal cost, when the school of thought says that when you're going to make an extra unit, only the variable cost is going to increase, so consider that as the product cost only. And fixed cost is not going to increase, so treat it as a period cost. So it's going to charge the entire cost, entire of the period cost, entire of the rentals and depreciation or whatever fixed salaries are. So whatever is the fixed cost, it will charge the entire cost. So it will charge more fixed cost, marginal costing, when this situation is there. There's an increase in the closing inventory and there are more units in the inventory, so less cost will be charged in the period. So definitely absorption costing would report a higher profit as compared to the marginal costing. The reason I discuss this, because this is one scenario, this is one part which is so tricky that you guys struggle a lot, especially when you come at this level, you struggle a lot with this concept. So, and you know how you reconcile profit. Profit differences change in inventory. Due to change in inventory and due to standard fixed overhead absorption rate per unit, a profit difference would be created. What would be the difference in profit? For example, I produced, opening inventory was 0, production was 1000, say units sold were 500. So closing inventory, there are 500 units in the closing inventory, right? So opening inventory less closing inventory, right? Into, for example, fixed overhead absorption rate per unit was 2. Yeah, fixed overhead absorption rate per unit was 2, 500 into 2. So what would be the difference in profit in absorption and marginal costing? It would be 1000. So in absorption costing, the profit would be 1000 more, because due to increase in the inventory, this cost wasn't charged in this period, because product cost is only charged up to the unit sold. So for unsold unit, 500 unit, the cost wasn't charged. However, in marginal costing, the entire cost was released in the period. So absorption profit would be 1000 more and marginal profit would be 1000 lower. Okay. So again, next you're going to study in this cost accounting technique is ABC costing. So what is ABC costing as opposed to absorption costing? Absorption costing absorbs fixed overhead costs as per the predetermined overhead absorption rate, right? As per the predetermined overhead absorption rate, and only production related cost is absorbed. Predetermined because until the end of the accounting period, we will come to know about our actual fixed overhead. But definitely we need to set our prices, we need to set our budget, we need to, so based upon, instead of waiting at the end of the period for actual fixed overhead and actual activity level and coming up with an actual rate, what we do that we base upon the, we absorb overhead, and because we have to do the inventory valuation as well, we, so based upon that we will absorb cost based upon the budgeted overhead absorption rate. So we will estimate as per the last record, we will know what are the budgeted production overhead and what are the budgeted activity level. Our actual activity level can vary. Yeah, our actual rate, for example, our standard rate, so we will absorb on the basis of the standard rate. So if we charged overhead cost as per 5 per unit, but the actual rate was 7, so we charged less. We charged less, so definitely our profit won't be correct. So what we will be doing, we will be making an adjustment. Sales less cost of goods sold will give you your unadjusted gross profit, and then you will either increase your cost or you will decrease your profit. So in this case, if we absorbed less, the situation would be under absorbed. The other way around, for example, the rate was 6 per unit and I charged, and the actual what I charged was 6 per unit, but the actual cost was 5 per unit. Then in that case, this situation will give rise to over absorb. Here you have over absorbed, so your profit would be lower. You need to increase your profit. Here you need to decrease your profit, because or decrease under absorbed. I charged less and the actual cost was more. Either increase your cost or you decrease your profit. Here I actual was less and I charge more, I over absorbed. So here I would either decrease my cost or in other ways I would increase my profit. So I need to make an adjustment. Whenever I'm using the absorption costing, it's not the actual fixed overhead, the actual rate. So the profit won't be correct until and unless you would make the adjustment of under and over absorb. So what I'm going to do here, under I'm going to deduct sales less cost of goods sold. This is figure is the unadjusted gross profit. So under I am going to deduct, and over absorbed I'm going to add, because over absorbed is my income, and then I'm going to get my adjusted gross profit. And I'm going to deduct, this was my product cost as per absorption costing, and then I'm going to deduct my period cost. All of the non-production cost is period cost and absorption costing. Then I'm going to deduct my non-production cost and I will be getting my net profit. So that's about the typical absorption costing. And the steps of absorption costing, if you guys know, first of all, you start from, but how you come up with this value of budgeted production overhead, it's not that easy that you start with budgeted production overhead and then you absorb, get a rate, and then you charge products as per that rate, and you calculate price and calculate cost. It's not that straightforward. The steps of absorption costing, first of all, the number one step is allocation. Okay, you allocate overheads to the cost centers. Yeah, whichever cost relates to that particular, there are, there are two types of cost centers. One is a production cost center, which is involved in production, and the other one is service cost center in a factory. So service cost center are the one which are providing support to the production cost center, like stores, like maintenance, yeah, like canteen and all that. So you would begin allocating the cost that relates to, that is traceable to that particular department. Then there will be some common cost as well. Common cost you will apportion, like bills and all, rental is a common cost, example of a common cost. Then you will apportion the common cost in all the production and the service cost centers. Then you will reapportion the cost share that the service cost centers got by the process of allocation and apportionment. You're going to reapportion the cost back to the production. Why? Because the production service is there for the production, so the service cost needs to be nil. It's only the cost that is arising due to production. If there was no production, there was no selling cost. So in a step of reapportionment, you reapportion the cost back to the production department. Okay, so you reapportion the service center cost back to production, and then finally you do the absorption. Okay, so that is very arbitrary method. We do absorption based upon, for example, we are absorbing based upon number of units, or we are absorbing based upon the machine hours, or we are absorbing based upon the labor hours. Considering a machine based environment, the reason problem was arising because not accurate cost was being calculated, and due to that, price at times we were charging a lot too high, or it was too low at times. So there were problems. The profit wasn't correct in that case. And in modern manufacturing environment, where there is a lot of competition in the environment, we need to be very clear about what price we are setting. We need to be, so for that we need to know the accurate basis for the cost, and also the overhead cost in today's world. For example, it's machine based environment, like designing cost, like engineering cost, like setup cost. So absorbing cost rather than on an arbitrary basis was creating problems in setting price, creating problems in determining whether we earned profit or not. So from performance perspective, we were having problems. So in order to address those problems, there's another method which absorb the overhead cost, but it is based upon the activity each product is consuming. So if there are three products, earlier if it was one product, the entire cost in a single product environment, it didn't create any a lot of difference in the price and the cost, because the entire cost was going to that particular product. But when there's an overhead cost, for example, if it's 20,000, 2 lakh, and now it needs to be absorbed into three products. So I need to absorb the overhead cost based upon the activity they are consuming. Okay. For example, for ordering cost, I need to charge as per the order each product has consumed. For setup cost, I need to charge the setup cost based upon the number of setups each product has consumed. If this has got 10 setup, this has got 2 setup, this has got 3 setups, so definitely more cost would be allocated to A as compared to B and C. If this has got 7 orders, 3 order and 1 order, so more cost would go to to A as compared to B and C. So activity based costing actually absorb the overhead cost. And one thing more you would have observed here, here not only production cost, in absorption costing only production cost was absorbed. As you can see, ordering cost, like designing cost, there's non-production cost as well, which is going to be absorbed, and it is going to be made a part of the inventory valuation, a part of the cost of our product. Okay, in absorption costing, it not just only charge the production cost, but it also absorb the non-production cost. Otherwise, in earlier, non-production cost was just a period cost. Okay, it wasn't charged, absorbed into product, but it was treated as a period cost and expensed or expensed out and all. Because you know that product cost is only charged up to the unit sold. So absorption costing has taken it beyond the factory floor has taken the overhead absorption into the products beyond the factory floor, and that it does not on the basis of the arbitrary cost drivers, but based upon the activity cost drivers. Okay. And another method technique we're going to study, which is a market-based pricing technique, which is known as target costing. So target costing, we need to study. Earlier, what we used to do, we used to calculate our cost, and then we used to sell at add a profit, and then we used to sell a product into the market. But now there's a lot of competition in the market, and even if we are launching a new product, we need to do the market analysis. We need to know the customer requirements, that what to produce at what cost we need to produce. So, and what would be a market price for that, we would automatically know with the help of market research prior from the start. So instead of calculating your own cost and then adding a profit and setting a selling price, it is an opposite method in which you start from the market price and you deduct what you want to earn, your profit margin or markup, and then you come to a target cost. It is also a cost reduction technique that helps you to reduce your cost, because if I cannot sell at a certain given price, definitely maybe my cost would be up, or I will have to compromise my profit. So if I want to improve my performance, I need to achieve that target cost. If market price is 100 and profit I want to earn is 20, so cost I should make that product should be 80. But if I estimate my cost currently, my estimated cost is 100. So if my own cost is 100, definitely I cannot sell it at 100, otherwise I won't be earning any profit. So here, right from the start, at the production, at the very initial stage, when you are doing the research and development and taking the market research and doing the market analysis, right from the start, from the designing stage, try to design the product that would achieve this target cost, because there is a cost gap. There's a cost gap of 20. If you're not going to cover this cost gap, so definitely you can't sell at 100 and you cannot earn your required rate of return, right? So this is another technique that is going to improve our performance, that will make our prices more competitive, that will actually help us to reduce our prices. Okay. And then life cycle costing. Earlier we were tracing the charging product cost to the products, and period cost we were relating to the period. We never trace the cost in entirety to a product, to a certain product. Like a cost that was incurred in product A, I need to trace the entire cost that was incurred right from the start, from introduction of the product into the market to right from the start, from development stage to introduction into the market to growth stage to maturity, and at last for a technological product the decline also comes there. So life cycle, earlier in either of this absorption and marginal costing, I told you about the product and the period cost. So we never trace the cost as per the product. So here the entire focus in life cycle costing is to actually know whether that product was profitable or not throughout the life cycle. For example, the life cycle may be for 3 months, it can be for 1 year. So throughout that period, in all these stages of the life cycle, in order to assess the true profitability of a product, I need to charge the cost. At times, you know that the development cost is capitalized, it is not expensed out. So it's never actually, you're never able to know that what was the cost that was incurred to on a certain product. Okay, but here this I would trace every cost, research and development cost, each and every cost. At time decline cost is also would come at which, because it is a periodic profit reporting. It was a periodic profit reporting. So whatever the cost, decline cost, whenever it would come, it would expensed out in that period. Okay, so never the entire life cycle cost was. So I was not able to calculate the profitability, true profitability. So here what I do, I calculate the life cycle revenue and I deduct the life cycle, entire life cycle cost. And then I get to know the entire life cycle profit of a product. It was never done in a periodic reporting based upon absorption costing before. It was never done before. Okay. So in throughput, there's another new topic that you haven't done before. You're going to do in PM exam. That's in environmental costing as well that you haven't done. There are now companies are environmentally aware. Now there are penalties for not recording or accounting for the environmental cost like carbon emissions and carbon footprint and all that. So now there are regulations. So now we're going to read the environmental costing as well. Throughput costing is another technique closer to the marginal costing, but it is a little different from the concept of contribution. Contribution is when from your selling price you deduct your variable cost. That is a contribution. If a product is giving you a positive contribution, it's a profitable product because we consider that the fixed cost remains constant. So if contribution will increase, automatically our profit will increase. So that's the concept of marginal costing. Throughput is slightly different. Throughput believes in calculating throughput contribution. Now, what is throughput contribution? Sales revenue less material cost gives you throughput contribution. Throughput contribution focuses on getting the money out of your business. That's the throughput, getting the money out of the business. Money will only come when a particular product would be sold, right? And throughput is based upon just-in-time system. It discourage inventory. It is not in a favor of holding inventory, okay? And also in a machine-based environment, when production is done in different processes, in different machines, for example, this is machine A and this is machine B, for example, one component is made on component A is made on machine A and component B is made on machine number 2. And together A and B, when we are going to assemble the product, our product C will be produced. How money will come, how throughput comes into action, okay? There are different capacities of the machinery. This machinery is a fast machinery, machinery is a slow machinery because its manufacturing capacity can be different. How there'll be a delay in that earning that money because C wouldn't be produced because a part of it is in a fast machine and the part of it is being produced in a slow machine. This has got a manufacturing capacity of 1,000 units per hour, but this has got a manufacturing capacity of, for example, 500 units per hour. So I can have as many of A, but if I won't get B, definitely my product C won't take place. So it believes in throughput. If we are going to increase our throughput, if we are going to remove the bottlenecks, it is based upon theory of constraints. It is based upon removing the bottleneck. As you can see that the 1,000 are ready in 1 hour, but only 500 A. This is a bottleneck. A, it was fine, it was going fine, but here at B, it is restricted. Limiting factor is a factor that is, or a bottleneck is a factor that is actually creating, reducing your level of activity or creating hindrance in your or reducing your production capacity. So here there was a bottleneck. So throughput believes in removing the bottleneck. So how the bottleneck can be removed? So after this machinery is done producing 500 units, it can stop running it. It can observe an idle time because this is only capable of processing 500 units. So if it's going to stop, so it will just streamline the production. Otherwise, if this can continue producing, but this can only process at a rate of 50% of the first machine, inventory will start piling up. Inventory will start piling up. And throughput costing discourage the inventory. Only inventory for a bottleneck machinery can be kept, but if it's a non-bottleneck machinery, how to elevate the how to exploit the bottlenecks is that that fast machinery need to be stopped. Then only the process could be streamlined. And then what is our goal? Goal is to earn money. Money is what? Money is throughput. So we need to manage our bottlenecks so that to have a streamlined production, then only we would be able to get money. Starting piling up of inventory is discouraged. Why? Because there's a holding cost, there's a lot of cost, inventory relating cost, and it is based on just in time system. Why throughput contribution is only deduct the material cost? Because it believes that only when a material would be purchased is only its cost in the short term. All other costs, for example, whether it's a labor cost, because there'll be in machine based, there'll be fixed salaries, or all other operating cost like production overhead, all other costs would be considered to be a fixed cost in a short term. That's why it doesn't value inventory on the basis of total production cost that we do in absorption costing. Whenever there'll be inventory, it will value inventory only on the basis of the material cost, and that's how it also calculates its throughput contribution. So say less material cost is throughput, and how once you get your throughput contribution, how you calculate your profit, you deduct all of the fixed cost. All of the fixed cost, labor, operating cost, all of your operating factory cost, that's your fixed cost. That's how you get profit. So that's an alternative method that you haven't done before. That comes in under throughput costing. Now I'm going to end the class with quickly wrap up what comes in the budgeting session. This is the first section, so I did it in more detail. So as you're going to continue it and as we're going to meet in our next session, you have clear idea that what was required of you and what you will be covering in the first area you're going to do, which is costing technique. Okay, in budgeting, you will be doing learning curve. It's a human phenomena that as we continuously repeat the production process, start making the same process over and over. Initially, for example, it took 2 hours. At the end, after making 500 units, maybe it will drop to 30 minutes. That's the learning curve. What is the implication in setting the price and a cost? Definitely, it has got a lot of implication. If we are going to set our price or cost based upon that 2 hours, which was without the learning, we need to incorporate our learning. Otherwise, our variances won't be meaningful. Okay, once after budgeting, what you do is you measure the actual result and then you calculate the variances. Okay, there'll be a lot of variable there'll be a lot of labor efficiency variance which would be meaningless. Okay, so it is a very important topic. While you're setting your budget, you set your budget based upon the unit at which the learning stops. So learning process is like initially you're taking a lot of time and then it comes, but then it gets stable. Learning time would never become zero. Okay, even if I go and drink a water, I say it takes 0 minute. No, it will take few seconds. Okay, to do those. So learning stops. This is a process at which learning stops. Flex budget, then we're going to see the flex budget. While you're calculating the variance, when there's a difference in the activity level, so you need to, and then there is a budget, one activity level based upon the fixed activity level, okay, which is a fixed budget based upon the single activity level. As you have actually started producing, for example, the budget was for 1,000 units, but now the actual activity level was for 500 units. I know the fixed cost won't change, but when I want to calculate a variance, a problem will face. Fixed cost would be different, would be the same. The standard for the fixed cost would be the same, but definitely the variable standard for variable cost would change. Why? Because now the activity level is only 50%. At the time I set budget, it was at 100%. So if I want to know whether I've overspent or I've spent less, whether I have cost saving or I have more, I need to calculate variance. For that, I need to prepare my estimated cost that should have come on my actual activity level. Estimated cost at actual activity level means I need to prepare a flex budget based upon the actual activity level. For example, when comparing direct material cost per unit as per the budget was 2. Now I need to set cost as per 500 units. Okay. So for 500 units, if the cost was 1,000 and actual cost is, for example, 500, so the variance here is 500 favorable. So while you see whether you have achieved your targets, whether your performance was good or not, you need to calculate variance. And if there's a change in activity level, you need to, variable cost would change. Fixed cost doesn't change, but variable cost would change. And if it's a nature of a cost is a semi-variable cost, okay, that you identify with the help of high-low method. You apply high-low method and then you see what is the variable portion in it and what is the fixed portion. For a semi-variable cost, you will flex the variable portion, but you won't flex the fixed portion. Okay, but if it's mentioned there's a, after a certain activity level there is an increase in the fixed cost, there's a scenario of increase in the fixed cost, then when you will be setting a standard that what a cost, what should have been the cost, what cost, so variance is basically what it should take versus what did, what the cost was actually did take. So it's a comparison of should take and did take. So in that case, you're going to change if there's an increment or there's a step fixed cost after a certain activity level, you're going to incorporate that changes in your estimated flex budget. Okay. Otherwise, we assume that fixed cost we're not going to flex and variable cost we are going to flex, because if the activity level changes, variable cost changes. Then you will study incremental budget, rolling budget, zero-based budget, activity-based budget. Incremental budgets, what is in budgeting? There are different budgeting techniques. Okay, incremental budget, how we set, how I'm going to set the next year budget. I will start from the current year budget and I would just simply incorporate any known change I have, okay, or any inflation. Okay, I would incorporate any known change and inflation, and I will be able to set my incremental budget. I have just added the increments on the top of the last year budget. For example, the budgeted labor cost was 40,000. Okay, and there was a known change. There was a one employee who was left. I know there's a known change minus 10,000. Okay, now it is 30,000, and I know the inflation percentage is 5%. So I will just inflate it and I will set my next year budgeted labor cost just like that. It has got advantages and disadvantages as well. Advantages, it is quick and easy to prepare, doesn't consume a lot of time. But disadvantages is that if I started from 40,000, but there was a way to actually reduce the cost by starting from the scratch, if I set a budget, but I start from the scratch, maybe I can actually reduce my cost by choosing alternative methods, by choosing alternative packages. I can actually reduce the cost. So zero-based budget actually start from the scratch. It is best used for example, your discretionary expenditure like your research and development costs, yeah, like your advertisement costs. Usually labor cost doesn't really change. So it's because it consumes a lot of time. Starting budget from a blank paper actually consumes a lot of time rather than just adding the increments on the top of that. So zero-based budget actually starts from the scratch, but it is more time consuming. You need to train your employees how to actually do that. There's another budget, which is rolling budget, which is very good for uncertain conditions. It is very good for uncertain conditions. Okay, for example, I set uncertain conditions. You don't know how your market is going to perform. There uncertainty relating to revenues, there uncertainty relating to cost. So you need to every quarter or every month you need to have an updated budget. Otherwise, your targets or your variances would be meaningless. So that's a rolling budget, not used for stable businesses, but for uncertain environments. For example, my sales budget was 1 lakh. But as the quarter has ended, I make quarterly budget. At the end of 3 months, I saw that I was only able to sell 50,000 units. And maybe my budget was set a little too high and it wasn't realistic. So how to make it realistic? Now, when I'm going to prepare a budget for the next period, what I'm going to do, I'm going to base my budget not on that original budget, but I'm going to base my budget on what I've actually achieved. So now, for example, I see I will adjust on the top of 50,000. If I every time I adjust a sales growth of, for example, 5%, now I'm going to inflate it by 5%, and then I will set my next period budget. So whether you're doing on quarterly basis or monthly basis, every time you will have a budget for the entire one period, like Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay. For example, actual was January. So January actual result came. Now I want a budget for the entire, and I prepare monthly budgets, monthly rolling budgets. So what I'm going to do after this period has expired, I am going to prepare, add one more period, and then it will I will make a budget from February to January next year, so that every time one period lapse, I add another period and I have a realistic and updated budget for 1 year. So that's kind of a rolling budget, but it has got disadvantages because for a salesperson, if a target is changing, there are chances that he won't get bonus. So definitely he would be demotivated. It's like a changing goalpost. So there are behavioral impacts of budgeting as well. Budgeting is a theoretical area, as I've told you, 65% it's theory. So you need to know how to draft an answer when a theoretical discursive question comes in your exam. Okay. And activity based budgeting is based upon a concept. For every activity you will be doing preparing a budget. So it's kind of you'll be identifying the cost drivers for all the activities, and then you will considering the overall output, considering the overall sales budget, all other activities, whether it's one activity, whether it's setup, whether it's designing, everything, all input would be budgeted as compared to the output we want to achieve for the next period. So it is an budgeting based upon the activity that we haven't ever read before. Next area is control, basic variances, and then there are advanced variances. Okay. Basic variances, you have done sales variance, material variance, labor overhead variance, fixed overhead variance, but you haven't read the advanced variance that you will cover in PM exam. Basic variance you have already done in your prior F2 exam, but if the base was weak, definitely here you will struggle doing the advanced variances. So I would recommend in my classroom, there are pre-recorded MA2 and F2 lectures that would help you. So you start from the orientation tab I have in my classroom. You start from the orientation tab. I have a set of things here. Planner is there, slides, these slides are there, and then there's specimen exam. Starting from that orientation, then you will move on to MA to F2 videos. It will give you a very good recap of revision. If your understanding is weak, you need to work on your conceptual understanding. So there are topics related to that. And before starting the first topic, advanced costing technique, you need to go over all these topics, and then you can start your advanced costing techniques. Okay. And then after you're done with advanced costing technique, budget area, then control, and then decision making, and in the end you'll be covering variances. Okay. In decision making, what is the challenge that students are facing? Because if you have directly without doing FIA, you have directly attempted F1, F2 and F3 exam, and now you're sitting for your applied skills exam, whether you have attempted F4 or any other paper, and now you're taking PM. Since you don't have gone through MA2. In MA2 there was a big chunk related to the decision making area. So if you don't have prior knowledge, that's why my MA2 videos are there. It will give you a good head start for the decision making area, because it is a very challenging area, numerical based and also theory based. So you need to know a lot of need to do a lot of practice and need to know a lot of conceptual understanding. And prior MA2 you need to cover, and then you need to come at the level of PM. Okay. So this is the area in which students struggle a lot, and it has got a lot of list of topics like relevant costing, one-off contracts. For example, if a customer approaches me for a one-off contract, for example, to provide 500 desks or to provide 500 laptops. Okay, that's not my main business, but it's one time order I need to fulfill. So I would base it based upon the relevant costing principle. What is a relevant cost? Relevant cost is a cost incurred in future, and it is an incremental. It is not what, it is the differential of both the options you're considering. Okay, or incremental revenue or incremental cost of the options, because in decision making we have a lot of options. Okay, whether you shut down or whether you not. So whatever you're planning, whether you do it, whether you're not, okay, you need to know the incremental cost and revenue. So that is only relevant. Okay, relevant cost is a future cost. Any cost which is already committed, which will be incurred anyways, whether you take the decision or not, or whether it's a past or sunk cost, already incurred cost, it is not a relevant cost. And also, if a cost is on non-cash item, just like depreciation, it is also an irrelevant cost. For example, a person approached me for a one-off contract. I would see what is the incremental revenue coming out of if I produce and sell 500 desks to a particular customer. So if I see the incremental revenue is 50,000, then I'm going to see what is the incremental cost. Incremental cost is, for example, 20,000. So there's a net benefit, then I would definitely pursue. If there's a benefit, I would pursue with a certain decision. If there's a net loss, definitely I won't pursue. For example, incremental revenue is 50,000, but incremental cost based upon relevant costing principles, uh, excluding the past cost, committed cost, existing fixed cost, yeah, on depreciation. I calculated it to be 1,50,000. The revenue coming is only 50,000. Now I have a net loss of 1 lakh. Definitely, I won't accept it. So you need to have a decision-making mind. You need to possess that skill. Being a management accountant, being assistant to a manager, you need to develop all those skills: planning skills, control skills, decision-making. You should know what is the right decision, and not only based upon the financial factors, you need to consider the non-financial implications as well. Whether I've got the skills, whether I've got time, whether I would be able to provide quality, what would be the impact on the employees. If I shut down, for example, what would the impact on morale on the employees? They would consider I would have to fire them, or I would have to lay off them for a certain time period. Just like in COVID period, a lot of employees have actually suffered that, in which they have been sent to some uh, undefined leave period, or there few have been fired. So we need to consider the non-financial implications of our decision as well, being a uh, management person. So shutdown decision. Okay, if a department, for example, if is giving you a loss, or a product is giving you a loss, or you want to shut down, these are all short-term decision making you will cover in this. So if I want to shut down, for example, in winter, usually it might not be feasible to open the water parks, right? So maybe temporarily due to, in this 3-month period, I want to shut it down for a short period of time. So I want to take that decision. Okay, because definitely not a lot of visitors would be coming, and I won't be able to cover my costs. So I better shut down. So how you take that shutdown decision? You take the shutdown decision based upon when you're going to shut down decision, definitely there'll be some lost contribution. Yeah, there'll be some lost contribution. And if you're going to shut down, if there was any specific fixed cost, that would be saved for the time period as well. Usual general fixed overheads won't be saved, but if there was a directly attributable fixed cost or a specific fixed cost, it would be saved. Okay, and for example, there was specific fixed cost saving as well. Okay, so this I consider a positive. If I'm going to shut down, there'll be some lost contribution. For example, the lost contribution was 70,000, but the saving in the fixed cost was only 50,000. So now, should I shut down? Should I shut down? So mindset would be that I'm shutting down. Whatever is the requirement, you will see from the requirement. But here the mindset is I'm shutting down. So I lose 70,000. But I will also save 50,000. And then I'm going to see the net impact of that. What is the net benefit? Here I lose 20,000. So the company will lose 20,000. So it's what you recommend. In the end, it is not good for the company to shut it down and we will continue. Okay, so that's how you're going to take the decision. And another kind of decisions that you need to take, which is make and buy decision. For example, if it is if you make, it costs you 50, but if you buy, it costs you 30. So if you buy, definitely there is a cost saving of 20. So all those conditions, all those decisions you need to take, those are make and buy decision. Then there are further processing decisions. Further processing decisions is based upon, in the process costing, they are joint products. You guys are familiar in the processing industry. This pinpoint the processing industry. So from a common input, there are multiple joint products, okay? And that could be sold at this, for example, I have a certain input, and this was a split of point. I've actually split it into product A and B. Okay. Now I have an option is whether, and they both of the joint products are individually saleable right there at the split of point. So I have two options here. Whether I sell at split of point or I further process, or I further process A into AA and then sell, and further process B into BB and then sell. So all I'm going to do is take my decision based upon the relevant costing principle. I am going to calculate the incremental revenue. Okay, if I sell it at split of point, the revenue, for example, there are 1,000 units for this and 1,000 units for each, okay, A and B. And if I sell it at split of point, the revenue is 5 per unit. But if I further process it, the revenue is 8 per unit. So definitely there is an incremental revenue that is coming, which is 3 per unit. So for 1,000 units, what would be the incremental revenue? It would be 3,000. Now I will see what is the cost. What is the cost? Okay. Now we'll see what is the cost. So for example, the cost is 7 per unit. 7 per unit. Okay. And for 1,000 units, so based upon relevant costing principles, I need to see what are my future cash and revenues. It has to be the incremental. It has to be the incremental revenues. It doesn't need to be 8. It has to be 3. Because 3 is what, 5 is what I'm already getting. Okay, 5 is what I'm already getting. So what is the additional I'm getting is 3. So I'm only going to account for the incremental impacts. And then it will be a cash flow. So incremental cost is 7 per unit. So for 1,000 unit, I'm doing for A for right now. So definitely I cannot pursue because there is a net loss. Incremental cost is more than incremental revenue. So there's a net benefit, the net loss. For a net benefit, incremental revenue has to be greater than the incremental cost. Then only it is a net benefit. So my decision would be to sell it at split of point rather than losing 4,000, as it will increase the company loss by 4,000. So definitely my decision would be to sell it at split of point. So these are the decisions you will see in the relevant costing. Then there is CVP analysis. CVP analysis, you will cover single CVP analysis as well as multiple CVP analysis. For multi-product CVP analysis, and you will cover for single product. Okay, in your MA2 exam, prior exam, you only did single cost volume profit analysis for single product. Only company had one product, but now if company had A, B and C, so now it will be called a multi-product CVP analysis. So what is a cost volume profit analysis? Whenever I start a certain activity, I need to know that at how many units I am at a break even. What is a break even? So as the activity level increases, cost increase, the revenue increase. So this profit has a connection with the activity level. So in CVP analysis, cost volume profit analysis, at different activity level, I analyze my profit and I see what is my break-even point. Break-even is achieved when your total sales revenue is equal to your total cost, or your contribution is equal to your fixed cost. Then only you are at break-even. For example, sales revenue is 50,000, variable cost is 30,000. Then here your contribution is 20,000. Okay. If your fixed cost is also 20,000, then means this is At this activity level, at this revenue, you achieve a break even. Even if I open up a bakery store or I open up any restaurant, I need to know my minimum activity level at which I will be at a break even. So cost volume profit analysis gives you an understanding at which activity level you will be at break even. And at, for example, if I'm selling 500 units, definitely I'll be at a loss. Okay, so it gives you an idea that, for example, this is your sales revenue and this is your fixed cost and this is your variable cost. So this is your variable cost. So it gives you an idea that what is a break even point. What is a break even point? So this is the point at which I will be neither at a profit or neither at a loss. Because at this point, as you can see from the graph, this is a sales revenue line and this is a total cost line. This is sales revenue and this is a total cost. At break even, I'm at neither a profit or a loss. And before break even, for example, at 1,000 unit, I'm at break even. Before break even, if I'm selling 500 units, definitely before break even, my revenue is less and my cost is more. So definitely I'm at a loss at this point. Only after I cross this, I'll be at a profit, because sales revenue less total cost, what I get is a profit. So CVP analysis also gives you an idea at which activity level you are at a loss, at which activity level you are at a break even. And if you want to achieve a certain target profit, for example, target profit of 50,000, at this activity level, I achieve a target profit of 50,000. For example, it's 5,000. So at what activity level you will be achieving your target profit. So it gives you an idea about all those things. Okay. So from this scenario, if you can see, okay, let's carry on. Now in linear programming, what you're going to learn about in linear programming, usually in case of single limiting factor, we take a decision that which product to make. For example, company has limiting factors. What is a limiting factor? Limiting factor is a factor we've already touched a little bit in throughput costing, but your prior MA2 knowledge is required to understand it more. What is a concept of a limiting factor? Limiting factor is a factor that is reducing organization activity. It could be shortage of material, it could be shortage of labor, it could be limited machine hours, it could be any limiting factor. Okay, so when a company is facing a limiting factor, it is a case when, for example, required resource is less than the available resource is less than the required resource. Then only there'll be a limiting factor. For example, required material kgs were, for example, 5,000, but the available kgs are only 4,000. So there is a shortfall of 1,000 kgs. Okay. Now I want to take decision that which product I should make first. Considering I have some limited resource, my aim is to maximize profit. My aim is to maximize profit. So my required resource I've calculated that would cover my entire sales demand, but I would only use up my available resource of 4,000. So how many units for each product I need to make? 10 more minutes. Okay, just 10 more minutes. So how many units I need to make? I need to calculate contribution per kg. Okay, contribution, a product which is giving me a highest contribution would be the project that would be the product that would just increase the overall profit of my company. For example, the contribution per kg for product A is 5, for product B is 3, and for product C is 2. So definitely I would divert my resource towards meeting the sales demand of the most profitable products. So I would start making this first, and then I would rank this as 2, and then I would, if a material kgs would be left, then only I would be able to meet the demand for C. So that's a single limiting factor. That at time there was only one limited resource. For example, in this case, it was materials. But in a case of a multiple limiting factors, there is a graphical approach. You will be studying that is known as linear programming. At times we are taking decisions under risk and uncertainty. Okay, that's another decision where you are uncertain about the revenues and the cost. You are uncertain about any of the outcomes. For example, you want to invest in project P1, P2, P3. You are uncertain. These are the choices you have. But there is uncertainty related to the demand. Yeah, there's uncertainty related to demand. So which product you need to take, there are certain sets of rules, there are certain techniques that you imply, and then you get to know the final decision that which product you need to pursue. Okay, because choices is what is within your control, but this demand is what you cannot control. There may be low demand, there may be medium demand, there may be high demand. So there are different outcomes and you don't know which outcome it would be and which product you need to see. So here you confuse that which product you need to undertake. So it's a situation which is highly uncertain. So in real scenarios, we managers need to take decision, and also what decision they need to take, it depends upon the risk attitude of the manager at the same time. First of all, you need to identify the difference between risk and uncertainty. If I say it's a risky event and I can assign probabilities, risk is a factor in which I can assign probabilities. Risk in which I can assign probabilities to the outcomes. Risk is that, for example, I say 50% chances that the demand would be high, 25% chance the demand would be medium, and 25% chance the demand would be low. How I have quantified that leaks, how I have assigned probabilities to the outcomes, that was only possible because I had prior data. Probably I have prior data for that. Okay, when you have prior data, then only you can quantify risk. Just like, for example, what is the risk probability if I drive below 50, speed of 50, if I drive 50 to 80, or what's the probability if I drive 120 above? Okay, so as per the prior data, you have the information about the accidents and at what speed a particular accident has been committed. So you have a certain, so this is where you can assign probability. For example, there are 80% chances if you drive within this, overall probabilities need to be 100%. For example, I say there are 15% chance, there are 5% chances if you drive with the speed below less than 50. Okay, so do you have prior knowledge for that? What is uncertainty? Uncertainty is where you cannot assign probabilities. You cannot assign probabilities. Uncertainty is where you cannot assign probabilities. Okay, I don't know what the actual outcome would be because I don't have the prior data. I don't have the prior data. Cannot assign probabilities. For example, if any area is not earthquake prone area, so the probability of earthquake could be 100% or could be 0%. Yeah, outcome of happening, and also it's kind of an uncertainty. I cannot assign probabilities. I don't have the past data. But if there is an earthquake prone area and there are incidences of earthquake, I can actually assign the probabilities to the outcome. So what are the chances of occurrence of that? So that is the uncertainty, is where you cannot assign a probability, but risk is where you can assign a probability. For example, if I already own a canteen and I want to calculate that whether a supply should be 50, 80 or 90, okay, these are what should be the supply of the sandwiches or the items I keep in my canteen. It's a recurring event. So as per the past data, I actually can forecast my demand. It would, there are, so I can assign probabilities to this. For example, I say that the 50% chances that demand would be this, 25% chances demand would be 80, and 25% chances the demand would be 50. So I can assign probabilities. Yeah, I can assign probabilities. So that means it's I can actually quantify it. But if I start a new product, I don't know about the demand, I don't have the prior data, so definitely estimating a demand is going to be an uncertain thing. So whatever is the case, in uncertainty there are different rules. You're going to see what is going to, how you're going to apply those rules, and then how you're going to take the decision. Last area is performance measurement and information system. There is one topic known as divisional performance measurement and transfer pricing, financial and non-financial performance, balance scorecard, information system and data analytics. Okay, divisional performance measurement. When a company has a decentralized structure where divisional managers have got authority, whether it's a profit center or it is an investment center manager, how are you going to measure their performance? For a typical investment center, you're going to study, you have already done that in your FT exam. There are two performance measures. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. One is ROI and the other one is residual income. Okay, ROI is how you one thing you need to understand. For example, you need to understand the controllability principle. Whenever you are assessing the performance of a manager, it should be based upon what he could control and what he was responsible for. For example, you're appraising an investment center manager, so you will only, while you're calculating ROI, you will calculate a controllable profit. You will calculate a controllable profit, and then you will divide it with investment or capital employed, and then you will see what is the return on investment. Okay, what is the do I mean by controllable profit? Controllable profit is what he can control. Okay, so any revenues he is generated, his division has generated, definitely it will come. And any cost he could control, only that cost would come, and then you will be able to calculate the controllable profit. For example, there are certain decisions he doesn't have authority for that, though is it's an investment center, but threat. But really, he wouldn't be an investment center manager, because there are certain, I cannot consider his division as an investment center, because there are certain decisions taken by the head office. He doesn't have 100% autonomy. For example, they can dispose of factory machinery. They have authority to purchase new machinery. So machine is purchasing and all thing. He cannot do that. So if we are going to charge the depreciation of assets controlled, not owned, that is owned by this division, but it is controlled by head office, so definitely it won't be a controllable cost for him. And if we are going to deduct that cost, it is going to impact his profit, and definitely it is going to impact its return on investment. So whenever you are assessing the performance of a manager, you need to base it what he could control. That's the controllability principle. What he cannot control, what revenues he cannot control, you cannot trace those revenues to while assessing his performance. What cost he cannot control, you cannot make him held responsible for that particular cost. So that's about that. And there's another formula, which is profit before interest and tax divided by capital employed, while you're measuring the performance based upon ROI. Okay, the other one is the residual income. In ROI, what is the advantages of the ROI? ROI is a relative measure. For example, it relates profit to the investment, to the size of the investment. For example, profit was 20% and the investment was 1 lakh. So I can see the return on investment was 20%. For example, this was one division. And if I compare the performance with another division, though it was a big division, okay, and profit was 1 million and the investment was 10 million. Though it was a big division, it was a different size division, but based upon ROI, I can compare two different divisions. Okay. For example, 1 divided by 10, what would be the return on investment? It would be 10%. Yeah. So I can actually compare the performance of different divisions based upon ROI, since it's a relative measure. It's a relative measure. Okay, how residual income is calculated? Residual income is calculated. The formula for residual income is profit before interest and tax, or controllable profit if you want to assess the manager's performance. Okay, profit before interest and tax minus notional interest on capital employed. One disadvantage of ROI, it doesn't take account of the cost of capital. Because investor, when they invest into the company, they want a certain return based upon the dividends. And if you got finance by loans, definitely there's a cost of capital. You need to there's some cost of debt. You need to pay interest on the top of it as well. Okay, so ROI doesn't account for that, because it takes profit before interest and tax. But residual income, do account for that, and a project performance would only be good if the residual income is a positive figure. For example, if profit was 20,000 and notional interest on capital employed, capital was 1 lakh and cost of capital was 10%. Cost of capital is also basically the minimum return. Wherever you want to invest, or wherever you have already invested, you need to cover that minimum cost of capital. Then only you would be earning some residual income. Okay. But if you have invested and the return on investment, if a return on investment is 20% and cost of capital is 10%, then that means it's a good investment. It's a worthwhile investment. But if return on investment is, or residual income is a negative value, or return on investment is 8% and cost of capital is 10%, then that definitely your performance is not good, or it's not a worthwhile investment, even when you are doing investment appraisal. So if I see that 10% of 1 lakh is 10,000, so residual income here is 10,000. So if a residual income is 10,000, then that means the division is performed well, that investment was worthwhile, manager performance was good. But it is an absolute measure. Disadvantage of residual income is it's an absolute measure. It cannot measure the performance of different divisions, since it's an absolute measure. Residual income is not a relative measure. It is not used to compare. It is not used to compare the size of different divisions, because definitely the residual income of a big size division would be more than the residual income of a small size division. Definitely. So it's based upon absolute measure. You cannot compare the manager's performance. But one thing that is good in residual income, return on investment, how a return on investment is calculated, it is dependent upon, it is relative to investment. If investment would be more, definitely the return on investment has got inverse relation. Return on investment would be less. Okay. So if manager, if period end is coming and manager wants to get bonus, but there is some investment he wants to take, but he knows that he won't be able to achieve the target return on investment, and then he won't be able to get the bonus. What he would do? He would do the dysfunctional decision making. ROI encourages dysfunctional decision making. When you want to appraise the performance of the manager, better use a performance measure of residual income. Because if you're going to measure his performance in ROI, and if he knows that if you're going to make the investment, capital employed would be up and return on investment would be down, even if it was a profitable investment, it was giving a return of 20% and cost of capital was only also 10,000. But he knows that if he's going to do the investment, and he gets a bonus on 20%, for example, he gets bonus on 20%, and he knows if he's going to do the investment, his ROI would fall to 15%. So even then, the residual income of that investment was 10,000, means that investment was worthwhile. It was covering the minimum shareholder return, but still he won't take that investment. He won't take that investment, so he will take a dysfunctional decision making. He will be concerned for his own bonuses. So when you want to praise a manager, so you want him to be not to take any decision which will be out, which won't be in the best interest of the shareholder, won't be in the best interest of the company. So to discourage the dysfunctional decision making, better to take a performance measure of residual income rather than ROI. So in transfer pricing, that's another divisional performance based performance measure as well. This is when internal subsidiary companies are trading. In one group company, there's one A division and one B division. What is transfer price? Transfer price is going to be, for example, this is a seller, A is selling to B and B is a buyer, and both are profit accountable. So A want to charge maximum price and B want to charge a minimum price, because transfer price is going to be a price. For example, he charges 10. This is revenue for A and it is cost for B. So what he would like to increase his profit as well, and he would like to increase his revenue as well. He would like to maximize the price and he would like to minimize the price. So in transfer pricing, we want to ensure the goal congruence. We don't want these segments to be self-interested segments. We will study some rules of transfer pricing, which would be an optimum or best ideal transfer pricing. Then you will be doing a financial and non-financial performance measure based upon ratio analysis as well as non-financial factors like quality, innovation. So that's how you're going to do a performance assessment question. I already told you. Then there is balance scorecard. Balance scorecard is another system of balanced reporting. Earlier, more focus on financial than non-financial. So there were a lot of customer complaints, and also in service industry, this it's very crucial. Quality is very crucial. So if you have good profit figures but your quality is deteriorating, definitely you won't be sustainable in the future and you will be losing revenues. So in order to make managers accountable for multiple factors for internal so there are four perspectives in which their performance appraisal is done. One is internal factor. The other one is based upon customer perspective, then financial perspective, then learning and growth perspective. Then there's another model known as balance scorecard. It is used for service industry. Service industry is mostly based upon manpower. So how you need to control manager labor, and you want the best out of them. How you want to control managers. So definitely you need to set certain dimensions of performance for that, certain criteria. You need to set certain standards for that. And then you need to set rewards according to that, rewards which would motivate them to do. For example, Uber, company Uber, how you would encourage the drivers. Maybe you would set packages that would help them to earn more bonuses. So in order to achieve certain good financial performance, in order to achieve be competitive into the market, that's another dimension. In order to be innovative, in order to uh, uh, utilize your source and maximize the productivity out of the input. So in order to multiple factors, you for all these factors you will be setting standards, targets for that. Yeah, and they will work on those targets and you will appropriately set rewards according to that, just to motivate them, and you won't blame them for things they cannot control. So this is a building block model which is used for performance appraisal in the service industry, like a school, like in a hospital, like in any service organization. Yeah. In the end, information system, data analytics, how their systems performing at different levels, strategic level, middle level and lower level, how transactions are being processed, inputs are generated, reports are disseminated to the management, that we are going to cover in information system. And data analytics is basically analyzing data to improve your performance. Now, analyzing data, whatever you do on internet, whether you're doing browsing, clicking on the images, text, you're browsing, you're checking the channels, Google search engine is actually recording your data. And also the companies are recording data and they provide data to different organizations. They're even in different companies now, it's a department within their company. They analyze the data, sales patterns, customer preferences, and then they do marketing according to that. This is known as business intelligence. Their data analytics teams working on that. The aim is to maximize performance. The aim is to maximize the profit by analyzing the data. So earlier, now they're keeping data, they're reviewing data, they're actually analyzing data, spending on data, because data when processed actually gives you very important information which could help you to increase your profit, could help you to decrease your revenues. That is not only used in sale, that is being used in production, in all the processes now, that by analyzing data, you can get the trends, you can get, but also there are disadvantages of data, because maybe a lot of data don't meaning, but you spend cost on that. So that will be covering in our data analytics session. I hope the session didn't went so long, and I hope I have given my best in this 2 hours. And now it gives you a good head start, and now you should be able to pass this very hard paper. Okay, thank you. That's it. That's it from today's session. Any questions you may ask me now. I've actually opened up your eyes right in the orientation session. Usually teachers don't do that, but why I did that, because now you know that what kind of understanding, what kind of practice you need, what kind of dedication you need, because there are a lot of sections, and in each section you can see there are lots of topic, lots of concept. Now you need to possess the right skills that a management accountant need to plan, control, to take decisions, to improve performance, just to improve companies financial position and financial performance. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.